In this video, I'm going to be talking about why I really like the Canon EOS Rebel SL2 camera for my online product photography. I sell lots of things online, and I've used lots of different cameras. I've used point and shoot cameras, and I've used DSLRs, and I've used mirrorless cameras, and I've just come to find that this particular model has the right balance of all the things that I want. And I've used more expensive cameras and all those things. So let me just show you a few things here that I really like about this. First of all, I like this swivel screen. It's just nice to be able to be standing up and taking pictures or sitting down and get this at the angle that I want. I like that I can pick the image quality as a fairly small file size. This is a 24 megapixel camera, but I typically use this S2, which is actually 3.8 megapixels, and those pictures are small file sizes and they upload quickly, and I just like to use that. And I also like that I can use this camera to take all the videos that I need. It's got video capability, and it will shoot in MP4, and that allows me to create videos that upload pretty quickly with small file sizes, and it also allows me to make VGA videos. Now you might wonder, why would anybody want to do that these days? Well, there are times when it's helpful to be able to create a very small file video for an online presentation, and this one will do it. Now there are some other cameras that Canon made that are similar and have some similar things as well as some other features, and like here for example is the T7i. One of the things that this has is this extra SD card slot, whereas on the Rebel SL2 it's in the battery compartment. Now that is nice, but it doesn't mean anything to me in what I do, because I just keep this camera on a tripod and I take the pictures, and I don't need to ever access that because they show up over at my computer, which I'll explain a little bit here. The T7i also has some more buttons here, which makes it nice if you change things very often. But for my product photography, I don't. I generally will set this up for touch shutter, which is a nice feature where I can put something out there. And let's just show how this works. So I got this battery out there. All I have to do is touch there, and it focuses on where I touched and took the picture. So that's a really nice feature. Lots of cameras have that. Lots of cameras allow it to make this square format, which is nice because it doesn't matter what orientation you're in. And let's see, what else do I want to show here? I can go through and set all the things the way I want them here. I typically use aperture priority, and I set the aperture at a fairly small, f16 or something like that, because I want a good depth of field. I want things that are this far from the camera and this far from the camera to all be in focus. So I want a good deep depth of field. So now there are other, in addition to the T7i, well, there's a step up, which would be like the 77D, which is basically the same as a T7i, except with a couple added features. It's got this LCD screen, and instead of the group of buttons on the back here, it's also got this little wheel that you can use to set aperture right there. But I don't need to use that on this, where it might be handy for photography when I'm out walking in nature or something. I might want to be able to quickly manipulate that. And then there's also the more expensive yet 80D. Now this camera has just about everything you could want, and it's got a nicer wheel on the back, similar folding out screen, but it will not shoot VGA video. For whatever reason they decided to drop that, and I really don't understand why. You know, maybe it's just something that most people don't do anymore, but it's still a useful thing to me. Another thing that is disappointing about these other three cameras, and I'll just show that right here, is where the USB cord plugs in. On this one, it's right there. And when that's plugged in, it interferes with how I set the screen. If I want it like that, I have to flip it down and at a weird angle. It's just in the way. With the SL2, they put the connection on this side, and it has nothing to do with affecting where I set the screen. So that's a really nice feature. And you might say, well, doesn't the SL2 have Wi-Fi? Well, yes, it does, as do these other three. But I've found that plugging it in directly makes the photos and videos transfer quicker, and it just seems more reliable. I just much prefer to leave it plugged in. And Canon has a wonderful program called EOS Utility, and so when I run that USB cord over to my computer, every time I shoot a picture here, it shows up over there within a second or two. And I know exactly where it's going to be because I've pre-selected rules onto where the pictures go, and if there's supposed to be a directory maybe for each day and it's not there yet, it will create it and put the picture there the first time I take a picture for that day. And so that's a great feature. A couple of more things though. One thing that's not quite so ideal is that the SL2 typically comes with a newer version of this kit lens, and that is this slightly smaller f4 version. I typically prefer the f3.5 to 5.6 version. I really like these IS STM lenses, STM for stepper motor lens, as opposed to the older type like these, and these just make a lot of noise and gears in there fail, and I just don't, they just feel cheaper to me. So I much prefer the STM lens, and this STM lens is actually good enough for all the product photography that I do. You don't need to go and invest in hundreds of dollars worth of lenses to get decent pictures. But for me, I really prefer this older version, even though it's a little bigger, a little heavier, because it focuses much closer than the new one. And that seems to be really the only downside. The new one's slightly darker, you know, f4 at wide open versus f3.5, but that doesn't make a whole lot of difference. But I really like the close focusing of this because I can take 95% of the pictures that I take with this lens without having to switch. Now, there is a very nice EFS 60mm macro lens that I use when I need to get a little closer and take really good pictures, and this is a very nice one to use for that. So, it turns out that the Rebel SL2 is just the right balance of all the things that I need for product photography. Well, it's got by far the smallest viewfinder of all these cameras that I just showed, but I don't care about that since I use the LCD in live view and take all my pictures that way. I have this mounted on a tripod, and I just take my pictures the way that I want them. I compose what I want in the picture, and I take the picture, and I don't have to do any manipulation of the photo after that. So having a bigger, fancier viewfinder isn't worth it to me, and having the extra controls isn't worth it to me. All the controls that I need are actually accessible here, and this camera might not be quite as nice for traveling or taking serious nature photography, but it's still awfully good, and it's just been ideal for my product photography. So thank you for watching, and if you get one of these, I think you'll be quite pleased.